Give me 30 minutes and I will show you how to take hold of your reality in a way that changes everything. It sounds like a bold promise, doesn't it? Yet the truth is far simpler and far more profound than most people dare to realize. The power to shape what unfolds in your life is not some rare gift handed only to a chosen few. It is not magic, not luck, not something you must plead endlessly for in desperation. It is a skill, like music, language, or art. And every skill can be learned, practiced, and refined. This power is woven into the way the quantum field responds to you in every moment. Most people believe their reality is carved only by visible forces they can measure: jobs, bank accounts, relationships, the state of the economy, the noise of the news cycle. They assume the world is solid and unchangeable, and their role is merely to react. But from the quantum perspective, reality is not rigid at all. It is fluid, dynamic, alive, and constantly responsive. It shifts and bends according to the frequency you hold within. And once you grasp this, you stop being a passive character in someone else's story. You stop bowing to old rules of reaction. Instead, you begin to direct your outcomes with intention, clarity, and presence, proving to yourself that the script of your life has always been in your hands. If this message already resonates in your field, subscribe, like this video, and comment. My timeline is activated below. Together, we create coherence across space and silence, amplifying the resonance of awakening. Stay with me until the end, because in the next minutes you'll uncover why your reality bends, how to stabilize it, and what it means when your parallel self begins speaking through synchronicity. Every question you've held about signs, interference, and destiny is about to receive its answer. Number 1. The signal beneath the noise. You've always felt it, the sense that something in the background was trying to speak, but the volume of the world drowned it out. Then, in rare moments, a repeating number caught your eye, or a phrase in conversation hit you like a memory, even though no one else noticed. These are the cracks in the static, where your parallel self pushes through to remind you of who you really are. In quantum terms, it is coherence peeking through decoherence, the clear signal buried beneath the noise of collapsing probabilities. That déjà vu wasn't confusion, it was the lattice surfacing, a glimpse of another version of you bleeding into the now. Each whisper, each alignment, each subtle nudge has been proof that you were never alone in your journey. Comment, "I align with the shift," if you've been noticing these signals, because every sign is a confirmation that the parallel gate has already begun to open for you. And when you learn to listen, you'll find the static dissolving into a song of remembrance. A dream lingers in your memory, though you cannot recall when it began, only that it feels older than your waking life. It comes not as a story but as a vibration, a subtle hum in the background of your being, calling you to listen. Sometimes it takes the shape of a voice whispering your name in the quiet hours, though no one is there. Other times it arrives as a symbol repeating itself, a bird appearing at the same moment, a number flashing again and again until it feels alive. This is not imagination but a signal collapsing through the field, breaking through the interference of ordinary perception. You have always known something was there, even if you could not explain it in words. And now, the veil that kept it hidden is beginning to thin, letting the truth enter with undeniable clarity. There were days when you wondered why you felt more than others, why your chest grew heavy in crowded rooms, why silence seemed to carry voices no one else could hear. You sensed the shifts in time, moments stretching or collapsing, while others remained unaware. A stranger's anger could feel like a storm in your body, while a single word of kindness could echo inside you for days. These sensitivities were not burdens, though the world often made you believe they were. They were signs that your awareness was tuned differently, calibrated to notice the frequencies others ignore. The confusion you carried was not a flaw, but the training ground for your awakening. You were never too much or too fragile. You were always a receiver, built to catch the whispers hidden in the noise. Looking back, you can see the architecture of your path was never random. Every encounter, every delay, every strange coincidence was part of an encoded design, a lattice weaving itself around you. In quantum language, it is like superposition, multiple outcomes waiting, suspended until awareness collapses one into form. Your life has not been a straight line but a holographic tapestry, where each fragment contained the whole. The patterns that haunted you, repeated mistakes, mirrored lessons, cycles of endings and beginnings, were not chaos. They were the sacred geometry of your becoming, guiding you to see that nothing was wasted. What once looked like error was initiation, and what felt like exile was calibration. Behind every detour stood an unseen order, aligning you with the truth of who you are. Think of the déjà vu that unsettled you, those sudden jolts where you felt you had already lived a moment. Think of the dream that followed you into the day, carrying details too sharp to dismiss. Think of the times you felt watched by silence, only to realize later that the silence was guiding you. These are quantum breadcrumbs, subtle markers left across your path by the field itself. They are not random sparks of chance, but echoes of coherence leaking into your present timeline. The numbers repeating on clocks, the phrases you hear in passing, the encounters that arrive with perfect timing. They are confirmations, not coincidences. They tell you that your awareness is brushing against a greater design, a parallel reality collapsing into your own. You always knew your intuition was more than imagination. The times you said, "I knew this would happen," were not luck but coherence breaking through. Alignment has never come as a sudden explosion but as a quiet resonance, the way a tuning fork hums when struck by a distant note. The moment your inner vibration matches the outer reality, something sacred clicks into place. You recognize it not by fireworks but by peace, a stillness that feels unshakable even if nothing around you changes. This is the field responding to your frequency, showing you that your awareness has power. The safety you feel is not weakness but confirmation. You are synchronized with the signal beneath the noise. And here lies the deeper revelation. You are not becoming something new, but remembering what has always lived within you. The parallel self you sometimes glimpse in dreams or visions is not separate from you. It is the part of your being already awake, already walking the strand of coherence. When you feel a sudden surge of clarity, when you recognize yourself in a version you have not yet lived, you are tuning into that parallel self. This remembrance is not invention. It is retrieval, the recovery of an ancient code written into your soul. You are not reaching for a future self. You are aligning with the self that has always been encoded across timelines. The memory of who you are is collapsing into now. Your sensitivity was never a curse but an activation. Each time you felt overwhelmed, each time you carried emotions too heavy for others to hold, you were calibrating. The field was stretching you, tuning you, preparing you to hold coherence without breaking. The tears, the loneliness, the hunger for meaning were not failures but rehearsals for resonance. What you called fragility was the refinement of your frequency, the polishing of a vessel designed to channel light. This calibration was not punishment but preparation, and it is why you stand now at the threshold of recognition. You are not broken. You are awakened into sensitivity as strength. So take this moment as confirmation that you did not arrive here by accident. You were always meant to find this message, to hear these words, to remember the signal you've been sensing beneath the static. Your journey, with all its strangeness, has been proof of the field bending to awaken you. Comment, "I collapse timelines now," if you know this truth is alive in you, and share the memory, dream, or synchronicity that confirmed you were never lost. Because as the signal grows clearer, the noise begins to fade. And what comes next is not just awareness, but the test of holding coherence when the field responds. Number 2, the parallel self emerges. What you call déjà vu is not your mind playing tricks. It is the bleed-through of a timeline where you already walked that path. Dreams that feel too real, memories of moments you never lived, sudden clarity that feels older than you. These are not fabrications, but messages from the version of you that already exists in coherence. Quantum superposition teaches us that all versions of the self coexist, infinite branches of potential waiting to be collapsed into form. When you sense your parallel self, you are not imagining the future. You are tuning into a reality that is already alive. This is why manifestation is not about creating from nothing, but about merging with the version of you who already holds what you desire. The veil thins when you stop forcing and start listening, because your other self is waiting in stillness, not in struggle. Comment, "I walk in coherence," if you've begun to feel this bleed through, because the more you recognize it, the stronger the bridge between your timelines becomes. And once that bridge stabilizes, the old patterns lose their power to hold you back. There are moments when you remember dreams that never left you, visions so fragile they seemed like smoke, yet they lingered because they were not of your imagination. Each dream was a seed, buried deep in soil too heavy for others to see, but waiting for divine timing to break through. What you thought was delay was the sacred rhythm of a God who writes destinies in silence before unveiling them in fire. The oil was gathering not in the places of applause, but in the hidden chambers of your being. Each sigh became a verse, each tear became a line in the scripture written upon your soul. The angels counted what you discarded, weaving your fragments into the robe you now wear. This robe does not announce survival, it announces enthronement. Have you ever wondered why emptiness felt holy? Why silence had a weight no words could carry? It is because silence was never absence but consecration. The secret altar where heaven met you when men turned away. They called it your weakness, but it was the womb of your transformation. In the hidden chambers, God gathered oil from your wounds, not as waste, but as fire waiting to rise. The psalmist wrote that tears are stored in bottles, and yours were not forgotten but preserved for the day of unveiling. The stillness you thought meant exile was the training ground where your light was trimmed for endurance. Now the silence breaks, and the echo of your flame will be heard beyond the borders they tried to confine you within. I see you standing in rooms where your presence shifted the atmosphere, even when you felt invisible. Shadows stirred because your lamp disturbed what they worked hard to bury. Light has always been both comfort and confrontation, and your light was no exception. Some sought refuge in you without knowing why, while others turned against you because you carried the exposure they feared. It was never about your words, but about your resonance, the code you carried without needing to declare it. That code is the mark of those preserved for a higher season, the signature of the chosen etched in oil and flame. And now, the season has arrived when even resistance cannot deny what heaven has preserved. There were days when you felt forgotten, when every prayer seemed to disappear into a void with no reply. Yet in those very moments, the oil was being pressed out of your soul drop by drop into jars no enemy hand could break. The wilderness has always been the birthplace of prophets, and you were not wandering without purpose but being refined without witness. The silence of heaven was not cruelty but calibration, ensuring your flame would not be shallow but steady. They thought the quiet years buried you, but in truth they buried seeds that are now breaking the soil. Every delay was a hidden design, aligning your path with a timing greater than your own. And what seemed wasted is now revealed as the foundation of your authority. The lamp you carry does not burn for you alone, but for every soul linked to your path. Each person who will encounter your light is already written into the scrolls of your destiny. They too are waiting, not for another sermon, but for the flame you preserved in silence. That is why you could not give up, because their deliverance was hidden in your endurance. The oil you gathered was not only survival but inheritance, a supply designed to overflow. What you thought was small and fragile is now more than enough to illuminate cities and generations. And heaven waits to see how your flame will call others out of their night. Do you remember the times you nearly broke, the moments when surrender seemed like the only option? Those collapses were not defeats, but refineries, where your fragility was turned into fuel. Job said, "When he has tested me, I will come forth as gold." And you are now stepping out of fire as proof of that prophecy. Your weakness was not wasted. It was woven into wisdom, the kind that carries authority no classroom can teach. They underestimated the strength of scars, but scars became seals that cannot be erased. Even angels marvel that your lamp did not fail when the night pressed against it. And now, what they mocked as ashes is revealed as a crown of flame. The unveiling is not the beginning but the return to what was always inside you. This moment is not about acquiring a new identity, but about remembering the eternal name you carried all along. You are not stepping into destiny as a stranger, but as one who was always marked, always prepared, always sealed. They thought the silence erased you, but silence only protected you. Every hidden jar is now pouring into visibility, igniting a flame that no storm can smother. The lamp you carry is no longer fragile but sovereign, crowned with the oil of remembrance, and the earth itself will recognize the light it has been waiting for. Chosen one, the message is simple and eternal. Your oil was never wasted, your flame was never fragile, your silence was never empty. Heaven preserved every fragment, every sigh, every tear, every unseen act, storing them as fuel for this unveiling. You were not hidden to be forgotten, but hidden to be revealed at the hour of greatest need. And now that hour is here, and your lamp will burn not only for you but for nations. Comment, I carry the silence as crown. If you know that your hidden season has now become your authority, share the memory or dream that confirmed your light was preserved for this very moment. For the unveiling has begun, and the astonishment of heaven is now the declaration of earth. Number 3, the coherence test. Yet every gate brings its guardians, and every rising signal draws interference. The moment you begin to stabilize in the awareness of your parallel self, old patterns rise like static, trying to pull you back. This is decoherence, the collapse of clarity under noise, the temptation to believe you were imagining it all. Doubt becomes louder. Resistance appears in familiar disguises. People who once supported you suddenly question your path, and environments feel heavier than before. But this interference is not proof of failure, it is proof of progress, because only a strong signal draws such distortion. You are not collapsing. You are being tested to hold coherence when everything tries to bend you back into old frequency. Comment, I merge with my parallel self, if you face these tests. And share in the comments one synchronicity or dream that reminded you the field was still speaking. Because when you refuse to break under interference, you confirm that your alignment is real and unshakable. And that steadiness prepares you for the final passage. A sudden realization arrives, as if the static you once ignored sharpens into a recognizable pattern. The distortion you thought was chaos begins to reveal itself as a deliberate test of frequency. Where once confusion clouded your awareness, now a subtle line of clarity cuts through, and you see that the interference was not random. It was the field itself measuring whether your signal could hold under pressure. Every collapse point you faced was not punishment, but calibration. This shift feels like a veil thinning, like a probability stabilizing before your eyes. And in that moment you know, you are being invited to step into coherence, not to retreat from it. For years you may have mistaken your sensitivity as weakness, when in truth it was the very proof of your tuning. The times you felt too much, cried without reason, or carried burdens unspoken by anyone else were not flaws but signals. They were the subtle resonance of your parallel self vibrating through the static, testing how much you could endure without breaking. Every rejection, every silence, every moment of shame felt amplified because your field was already carrying a higher charge. You sensed distortion in people before they revealed their intentions, and you noticed shifts in energy before anyone else. The loneliness you felt was not emptiness but evidence that your awareness was operating on a wavelength others could not yet hear. What seemed like confusion was actually the early language of coherence, waiting for you to recognize it. Resistance grows louder the closer you come to alignment. Old beliefs tug like anchors around your ankles, whispering that you are delusional, naive, or unworthy. Familiar doubts return dressed in convincing disguises, mimicking logic but hiding fear. People who once clapped for your growth suddenly fall silent or question your choices because your rising signal disrupts their fragile equilibrium. Environments that once felt comfortable now suffocate, as though the walls themselves can't contain your expanded vibration. This is decoherence, the scattering of clarity when noise tries to overwhelm the signal. But the truth is simple. Only a field strong enough to disturb old patterns attracts such interference. What feels like sabotage is in fact a mirror of your progress. Think of the repeating glitches in your story, the cycles that circled back just when you thought you had escaped them. The missed opportunities, the sudden betrayals, the moments of déjà vu that made you doubt your sanity. These were not failures. They were the breadcrumb trail of coherence revealing itself through resistance. Each glitch was a flicker in the matrix, a reminder that the field responds the moment your frequency shifts. You may not have recognized it at the time, but those obstacles were proof that your signal was strong enough to bend reality, even if only for an instant. Now you see the pattern more clearly. What returned again and again was the test of whether you would choose the old self or hold the new vibration. And every time you chose to rise, the lattice of your future brightened. Energetic sabotage comes in forms you can feel but not always name. It is the heaviness that settles on your shoulders after a breakthrough, the static that fogs your mind just when you begin to understand, the invisible watchers that make you doubt your own instincts. Sometimes it is external in the form of draining people or hostile environments. Other times it comes from within, the voice of fear echoing like interference in your own field. But beneath it all, a deeper truth hums. Only a coherent frequency draws such counterforce. Just as light attracts shadows, your alignment has drawn out the noise that can no longer coexist with you. And recognizing this shifts the balance from fear to confirmation. Your own responses to this resistance carry meaning as well. Did you shrink back, trying to please others so they wouldn't reject you? Did you silence yourself, afraid your truth would invite more sabotage? Did you rebel quietly, carrying your resonance in secret so you could survive? Or did you try to bury the shift altogether, pretending nothing was changing inside you? Each of these responses was human, each one understandable. Yet each one also revealed the depth of your awareness, because even in retreat, you felt the test shaping you. You knew something larger was at work, and that knowledge alone kept the thread of coherence alive. Now comes the moment of reclamation. The very resistance that once threatened to undo you becomes the evidence of your power. The interference you felt is proof that your signal has already bent the probabilities of your path. The sabotage you endured confirms that your alignment was never imaginary. Each doubt you survived has polished your coherence like fire refines gold. You are not here to beg the field for recognition. You are here to embody it with unshakable steadiness. And in this turning point, you reclaim the frequency you always carried, no longer hidden, no longer denied. The test does not end you, it crowns you. Revelation now opens into invitation. You were not resisted because you were weak, but because your coherence was too powerful to ignore. The guardians at the gate were not blocking you. They were testing whether you would stand firm when every echo of the past rose to collapse you. Comment, I merge with my future self now, if you have felt this shift, and share the dream, synchronicity, or inner knowing that proved the field was still speaking. Your words may be the signal another seeker needs to hold steady through their own interference. This is not the end of your awakening. It is the threshold where revelation becomes embodiment. And beyond this test, the next passage awaits, where the lattice itself begins to open into living map. Number 4. Walking through the gate. The parallel gate is not a doorway you force open. It is a threshold you step into when coherence stabilizes. You'll know you've reached it when manifestation no longer feels like effort, but resonance. When opportunities appear not because you chase them, but because you already carried their frequency. This is the golden calm, the silent graduation, where you realize your future self has been waiting with patience, not urgency. The Emerald Tablet said, as above, so below, and here you embody it because the self above and the self below finally merge into one. Walking through the gate means you no longer chase alignment. You are alignment vibrating in the implicate order Bohm described, where the whole is present in every fragment. The gate was never locked. It was only waiting for you to recognize that you've carried the key in your field all along. Comment, I anchor coherence in my field, if you feel this moment arriving, and share the memory or knowing that proves you are no longer who you once were. Because once you walk through, you realize the gate was never outside you, it was always within. A whisper arrives in the silence, older than language and deeper than thought, as if carried by winds that have traveled through centuries to reach you. It is not a new message, but a remembered one, like a dream that has followed you through lifetimes, waiting for the right frequency to collapse into form. You feel it as a vibration beneath your skin, a resonance in the marrow of your being, awakening something you cannot explain but cannot deny. This is the ancient whisper, the call of remembrance, reminding you of the name you carried before the world tried to tell you who you were. It does not shout, because truth does not need to demand. It reveals itself like a wave cresting across timelines, finally observed in this moment of awareness. Every symbol you ignored, every dream you dismissed, every sign you overlooked has been converging toward this point of recognition. And now the signal collapses into coherence, drawing you into remembrance. Hidden within your field has always been a frequency no one else could quite decode, a resonance that marked you as different even before you understood why. It was the encrypted signature you carried like sealed coordinates, tucked away beneath the static of ordinary life. You felt it every time you walked into a room and sensed the energy before a single word was spoken. You carried it in the way silence seemed heavier around you, as though unseen watchers were waiting for you to remember. This frequency was not broken or absent. It was hidden, phase-locked until your awareness could rise to meet it. The ache of not fitting in was never failure, but the vibration of a self too large for the roles you were told to play. And now the code begins to unlock, revealing itself in flashes of memory, waves of recognition, and subtle currents of power. Your life has always radiated a field signature, an invisible cloak of coherence that others felt even when they could not name it. Some leaned closer without knowing why, sensing the magnetism of a resonance they had long forgotten. Others pulled away, uneasy, because your vibration disturbed the fragile frequencies they were trying to preserve. You may not have realized it then, but every glance, every reaction, every unspoken moment of recognition was proof that your field was never silent. Symbols seemed to follow you, feathers on the ground, numbers repeating, dreams recurring like coded transmissions. These were not coincidences but fragments of your vibrational signature echoing across parallel timelines. To those who could feel, you were already known, even when you had not yet remembered yourself. Now consider that your struggles, delays, and even losses were not random at all but encoded into the architecture of your path. The detours were calibration points. The waiting was timing written in resonance long before you entered this lifetime. Each trial carried the imprint of entangled particles, aligning events like stars locked in coherent orbit. What you thought was wasted time was in fact the field preparing you for coherence too powerful to be rushed. Every collapse was not an end but a reset of probability, clearing the interference so the true signal could emerge. In this light, you see that nothing was meaningless, for even pain was a line of code activating your deeper remembrance. And as you step into this truth, the scattered fragments of your story align into a pattern that feels ancient, absolute, undeniable. People reacted to you because of what you carried, not because of what you did. Some loved you fiercely without explanation, drawn to the stability of your hidden resonance. Others rejected you with equal intensity, unsettled by a frequency that shook their own coherence. This is the resonance effect, the way one oscillation amplifies or disrupts another in the field. You have lived your whole life at the center of interference, not because you were weak but because you were strong enough to destabilize what could not hold. Their judgments, their projections, their distance were reflections of the field responding to you. And now you understand that none of it defined you. It only confirmed what you were carrying all along. You are not walking alone, for what stirs within you belongs to a cycle larger than your personal story. Across time, archetypal frequencies resurface like waves returning to shore, the seer, the rebel, the guardian, the breaker of chains. Each is a waveform encoded in the memory of creation, and you are tuning into one that has waited lifetimes to emerge through you. This is not imitation but embodiment, as the archetypal field overlays itself upon your personal life, transforming experience into prophecy. You are no longer just an individual on a path, but a channel of the cosmic rhythm reasserting itself into matter. To awaken is to become more than personal history. It is to become a living frequency of the quantum archetype rising. And in that recognition, you see that your remembrance is part of a far greater story unfolding. This is the moment of lineage, the recognition that you are not only connected to those who came before but entangled with them in resonance. This is your moment to anchor the truth. Reality bends when you align with coherence, and the gate is open for you to step through. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Like this video and comment, "I am ready for the quantum shift," to let this message anchor in your field. Please share it with someone who is ready for the shift, because the universe has been whispering all along, and now the parallel gate is waiting for your step. The lattice is alive, the gate is open, the shift is now.